Transgenderism is a lie. What I got tricked into, what I was given was a devil's potion. I took my guns and smashed them apart.
Why?
All my guns are gone. I took guns that are worth $10,000 each. I was smashing them on the concrete. I cured myself of TBI. I cured myself of PTSD. I cured myself of anxiety. I cured myself of transgenderism. I cured myself of being an alcoholic. And I apologize to Afghanistan. I apologize to every human in Afghanistan, every person in Afghanistan. I apologize. I think our government should do the same thing. But I know that I'm never going to pass away because I am an eternal spiritual being right now in this third dimension for a very short period of time.
What's going on, Cylinder Radio listeners? If you're interested in the nuance of dialogue and things like that, check out my freebie, download Debate to Dialogue, How to Have Productive Conversations About Politics and Religion. Hello and welcome to the next episode of Cylinder Radio. I'm your host, Will Roosh, high school teacher in Los Angeles, trying to bring viewpoint diversity and real search for truth back to the mainstream kind of consciousness, and especially in education. And my guest today, when I'm writing down their bio, it was like, it's a lot. Christopher Beck, U.S. Navy SEAL with 13 deployments, including 7 combat deployments. Navy SEAL Team 1 and the infamous SEAL Team 6. Countless awards and decorations. Came out as a trans woman in 2013 and then detransitioned in 2022. Chris Beck has lived a life and is only 56 years young. And I think that there's so much that we could cover here just based on experiences. Chris, thank you so much for being on this show. There's a lot that we can talk about. The whole point of the podcast is viewpoint diversity. So it's trying to understand different perspectives. And I don't know if I've ever talked to someone who has lived as diverse a life as you have. So I think we can cover a lot.
I guess I'll take that as a badge of honor. Hey, I'm really grateful to be here on the show. You know, as I said before we even started, I'm honored also to be on here. You know, you're a school teacher and you're one of the kind of teachers that I wish we had more of in America. I think if more teachers were like you, we wouldn't be in the problems we're in right now. You're a person who's searching for truth and you tell the truth, even if it hurts. I really appreciate that. I know that today's struggle right now is really about truth, and it's not something that's subjective. It's not something that not everyone can have their own truth. You know, I don't believe that that's true at all, you know? And actually, that's pretty funny saying it's subjective truth. It's not true. But it's something that we need to start, you know, kind of talking about more, is that there are such things as universal truths. And you can't say that a universal truth is malleable into someone's own personal biosphere that they make for themselves. I think that you're chasing the right thing. And then you're teaching it to these, you know, young students in Los Angeles. I think that's amazing. I really appreciate you for doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm going to take that compliment. You know what it is? I never loved school. I'm just a really curious person. That just makes me open-minded. It keeps me like, all right, so where are we going here? And it's the thinking process. I don't have all the answers. I just have a process for trying to get to the right answers. You know, my ego isn't connected with having the right answers. It's connected with getting to the right answers, where I think a lot of teachers kind of set up themselves to be like, I know these things. I have the answers. I have the wisdom here, and then you come and get it. Where mine is like, I don't know, but let's try and figure this out kind of together. And I'm doing it in real time on my Instagram and stuff like that. Is that kind of what resonates with you?
Oh yeah, I'm on your Instagram. I see it. You know, every couple of days I'll see one of your posts come across. I love it when you start talking about, you know, things that are a little funky, and you start saying, well, hey, this is not conspiracy theory. This is just me just searching for the truth. It just so happens that it touches upon all these conspiracies, you know? And I can't stand the fact that they keep saying conspiracy theories about all these things. How come they can call gravity a theory? Why don't we call gravity conspiracy theory, you know? Because it's not, a lot of people believe in gravity. You know, I, for one, do not. I believe in the laws of thermodynamics. I believe in Archimedes' law. You know, it's a principle, it's a law, you know, and I do believe that Archimedes had it more correct than Newton. You know, I think Newton was a Jesuit, you know, Freemason, and I don't think that he was really on the right track for a lot of things. You know, he reinvented a lot of things and made it into his own wording, but I do believe everything has to do with buoyancy. And if you think about, you know, water dynamics, what is it, hydrodynamics and how the flow goes, and if you look at aerodynamics, you know, hydrodynamics and aerodynamics are the same. They're just different medium, you know, different density. So when you're building a ship, ship and you're building an airplane, a lot of the same principles actually come into play. And that's something that people don't really realize, that Archimedes is actually the guy, you know?
When you say like don't like believe in gravity, I think that like some people would take that out of context, not understand. But like what we understand about our perception of gravity is so limited. Eric Weinstein was on Joe Rogan's podcast talking about these UFOs that were like not following the laws of physics, and he's like, "What physicists are you talking to that are saying?" Because it's not physicists saying that, because there isn't a full understanding of how you can bend gravity, and like the whole concept, like you throw a bowling ball on a bed and everything rolls in. That if you throw something essentially like heavy, I'm way out of my league here, but like way heavy into gravity, then you'll bend it. And then that explains how some of these like UFOs essentially don't have a heat trail or anything like that, but they're able to travel so fast. Like we're just so limited.
You're missing, but well, actually, when I was on Joe Rogan, I actually brought this up about gravity. And I said that gravity is bunk and it's actually Archimedes. It's about buoyancy. It's different mediums. Now, when you start talking about in quantum physics, I can do some of that too. But the thing that I try to tell, younger students especially, and we do homeschool our kids. And we also part of a homeschool network where there's a lot of other kids coming in. And we teach them from the books, but we also have them question things. And so I start asking them about, about neutron and proton and electron. So these three things, right? Now, if you took a neutron and a proton, and you made those the size of softballs, how far away is the electron? And they're going, well, I don't know. And I said, it's like a mile away. If a neutron and a proton are sizes of softballs are this big, the electron's a mile away. And the electron's about the size of a gnat. And it's flying at, speeds that are incomprehensible, way faster than the speed of light. And they don't even talk about that. Nobody even knows what an electron is. They don't understand it. But so you have a proton and neutron, the electron's a mile away. What's in between?
Yeah.
It's a mile away, and that's one little atom. And we have all of these atoms inside of us. So that means inside of us, there's more air gap than there are actual solid matter. And electrons aren't solid, and a proton and neutron is debatable also whether those things are even solid. But then I started going into some of the God theory. Leedskalnin from the Coral Castle. If you look into Leedskalnin and Coral Castle, he was floating 20, 30 ton chunks of coral to build his castle. He's doing it by himself. And how was he doing that? He had a device. What he was doing was he was working with the area in between the proton, neutron, and electron. How was he doing that? Nobody's really asking these questions. These are questions I ask every day. That's exactly how they're doing it with UFOs, is the way Leedskalnin picked up these 20 and 30 ton blocks of coral to build his castle. I understand a lot of this. And it's something that most people don't want to go into. It goes into magnetons and it goes into a lot of the, it's a lot of quantum theory, but it also gets into theology. It gets into God particles and everything else. And you also have to start wondering, what are they doing with the accelerators? And they start trying to make the God particle and smashing these particles and all that stuff apart. They're playing with stuff that they don't understand. And I think I do understand why they're doing it. They're trying to create God on earth. They're trying to bring in the day of the Antichrist. And they're doing it through a lot of really evil things. Start messing with God and things that are God created, and we don't even know what we're doing. There's a lot we can get into if you want to.
There's so like we're just jumping right into the deep end. I think at the end of the day, it's just like the big picture is like, let's be humble about what we are certain we know and things like that. Before we go, like, let's get into all of it.
Is the Earth flat or round?
Right. Like, you are knowledgeable on this stuff, and a thing I talk about a lot, the difference between knowledge and wisdom. I think wisdom is from like life experiences and stuff like that. And you have had life experiences, Chris. So can you just tell us like your background? Navy SEALs, it's one of those things like today that like being a Navy SEAL, that's the pinnacle. That's the pinnacle of like human accomplishment in physicality and mental fortitude and all that kind of stuff. It's so big. Like when I'm doing stuff with my sons who are 8, 6, and 1, my 8 and 6-year-old, we do like stuff in the pool. We call it Navy SEAL training. They have to pull little dumbbells up off the bottom and stuff. Like, what's your background? Like, what was the situation that you were raised up in? And then how did you decide to become a Navy SEAL, which a lot of people want to, but then you actually did it. And then you did all of these tours. You weren't just like a Navy SEAL, like the way that some people are. I don't want those shaded people, but people like, went through the training and then they can have that badge of like, I'm a Navy SEAL, but they never really did the job itself. And that was your job for quite a long time. So can you just give us a little bit of like your bio, your background of how one becomes someone who is willing and able to do such a mentally and physically demanding profession, like being an elite soldier like you?
Your sons, and you have a pool. You have a pool at your house?
We did. At our new house, we have like a community pool, yeah.
Hey, so whenever you get a chance, get a hockey puck, like a real hockey puck. The black ones, they kind of sink really good in the water. Get a hockey puck and play underwater hockey. It's all with breath holds. What you do is you have two teams, you know, and you can have one wearing t-shirts and the other one not, you know, whose team is who. But you put goals on each end, you know, and you just hit the wall on the other side. You get the wall anywhere, you score. We have to breath hold, get down, get the hockey puck, and then you have to kind of run on the bottom or move. And your other team goes underwater and tries to attack you and make you not have the hockey puck.
No sticks, just use your hands.
Just use your hands. Yeah. So when you're underwater, it's there's no rules. So pretty much you can tackle somebody underwater, you can grab them, you can do whatever you want. You know, underwater, you just all underwater. So, and it's pretty fun game.
Oh, that's dope.
So we used to play that all the time in the SEAL teams. It's really good training for training your breath holding and doing very, very hard work underwater because you're wrestling with each other. So if you do that with your sons, that'd be pretty cool thing to do.
Yeah.
I grew up on a farm in 1960s and 70s. So you can imagine the time frame I grew up in was a lot different than it is now. So back in those days, paddling a kid in school was pretty common. I got paddled almost every day by the principal or by my teachers in school. And I also went to Christian schools, which made it even more, you know, gloves off, do whatever you want. So your parents pretty much sign you over to that Christian school, and then they just take care of business. That was just like Catholic schools. You hear all the things about the nuns whacking you with a ruler and all that. Those are the type of schools I went to. So discipline was a big part of my growing up, which is kind of opposite of what you have nowadays, you know? Nowadays, if you even yell at somebody, you get in trouble and they throw a card up and then you're kicked out of school. The teachers are getting punished for yelling at kids. You know, and I think it's ridiculous. So first of all, spare the rod, spoil the child. And that has to be, you know, emphasized. Now, the fact is paddling and spanking, it's extremely diminishing return. After one paddling, the returns are almost nil. So it's pretty much, the discipline has to be changed. It can't be like what we got back in the old days, 6 to 10 whacks with a paddle that was basically a shaved down baseball bat. So I used to take these bats and they would shave off the sides of them to make them flat. And that's what they used to whack us with. You know, it's a little different nowadays. You know, don't do that. I'm not condoning that. I'm not saying a rod, spirit of rod, spoil the child. I'm just saying there has to be some sort of discipline.
Yeah.
Now, if that discipline is taking away the Xbox, or that discipline is, you know, timeouts seem to work pretty good. But if you're timing out your kid in this room, then he has his PlayStation, Xbox, and other crap, you know, it's not really timeout. It's more of it's a reward for the kids of today. What I would do for timeouts nowadays is I would make the kid go outside and pick up sticks to start a bonfire for later or something. Or go outside, you know, and dig in the garden for a while. Here's the pickaxe, and go take care of that part of the garden. There's things that have to be done for the family, so it's a punishment that has a good return for the family.
Yeah,
there has to be
some reflection. I think. Yeah, that's a big thing with us, with our boys, is like reflection, so they know like what they did and how it negatively affected people, things like that.
Exactly.
Otherwise, they can just close their minds, close their eyes.
Just punish them by making them read. Yeah, make them read for a punishment doesn't really work because then they think reading is punishment.
Then reading's a punishment. Yeah,
you have to really be careful with the punishment. But if you don't punish your kids, you're going to end up with one of them spoiled little kids, and they're going to end up turning into one of our politicians here in America. It's just ridiculous. So I got a lot of discipline when I was a kid. The other thing I got when I was a kid was I wasn't allowed to quit. If you let your kid start a project and you don't make them finish it, then you're going to fail your kid. And so that's whether it's like building a model, you know, there's a modeling thing. I had this snowboard in the 70s. It was a plastic one, had no edges on it, had these weird little ties on it, and it was super cheesy. This is like the late 70s, I think. Yeah, 77, 78 or whatever.
That's early as snowboarding.
Oh, yeah, and I snowboarded. Like, I got my first snowboard, my real one with edges, actual edges on it. I think it was like 1982. It was early. A Burton board back in those days, too. And I went up on our own hill. I'd walk up the hill. I'd try to go down this thing. And it was this crappy piece of flag with no edges, no nothing on it, on like an icy hill. And it was almost impossible to stand up on. So I went up and down that hill probably 50, 60 times. Until I went down at one time. So I got into my head that if I say in my mind, I'm going to do something, I'm going to keep doing it until I actually do it. And that happened to me very, very early in life. So if you're giving your kids projects, if your kid says, hey, I want to do that, you know, hey, I want to read that. Well, okay, let's read it. You know, and if you let them go halfway through it, say, I don't really like this book anymore. Too bad. You said you're going to read it. Let's read it. And you have to read it with them. So, you know,
so you're built like that? Chris, are you just built like that? Like you're like, when I commit to doing something, I do it. I mean, the dropout rate in the Navy SEALs would ring the bell, that whole thing. You know, everyone knows about that now.
90%.
Yes, but
9 out of 10 people drop out.
to someone like me, such a civilian, it's like, that's understandable because it's so difficult. They make it so easy, right? They like follow you down the beach. It's right there. They always say like, coffee and donuts are waiting for you.
But it's after you run 20 miles down a beach, let's do it that. And they say, okay, we're almost finished. And then there's the finish line. You see it. There's the door to go back into the barracks to take a shower. And they just keep on running. You're going, wait, the door is right there. We just finished going 20 miles. Why'd you go past the door? They go, keep going. So even when you think you're finished, you're still not finished. And that's
have that in you?
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, it might have been instilled in me by my parents, I'm not sure, but I definitely know that. I don't know if it's in all my other brothers and sisters. I'm the only one that finished college. I'm the only one that did the military and finished all that. I'm the only one that finished a lot of stuff. So I don't know if it's something that every kid will pick up on, but this is something you can train your kids to do. That's why I was talking about the book.
Yeah.
If they say, I want to read that book, make them do it. They say they pick up a model and they want to do that model. Yeah. Well, then build it with them. Have them do it as far as they can get it. And they say, well, I don't really like doing this anymore. Well, let's do it together then. And then after you do it together, it starts becoming fun and it's something you do with them. Whatever your kid picks up, they say they want to do something, they need to finish it. If it's a sport, they say they want to play summer soccer. Well, okay, let's do it. We had our kid just recently do a theater. And, in partway through it, it was like, well, I don't really want to go to practice now. You're going to practice. You're going to go every day. You made a commitment to everybody else in that play. And you're going to go and you're going to finish that play. And he only said that once. And then I think he figured out we can't skip. People are counting on you. And you cannot skip. And then he kind of got it. He was like, okay, people aren't counting on me. Now, maybe reading that book, people aren't counting on you for that. But what you're doing is you're training your child to finish the job. How many projects do you have around your house right now that you have to do like the 80%, 90% thing, and you only have to finish just a little bit more to get it done? I mean, I can tell you I have projects around this house right now that are about 90% complete and they're just not done. I have a Jeep up on cinder blocks right now that I have to finish. I haven't finished it yet. I'm beating myself up for that. And it's just like, oh, I'm failing myself. I got to finish that Jeep, get it back on the road. I have a lot of projects I haven't finished, so I'm failing myself because I made my mind to do these things. So you can instill this in your kids right now. Even if they don't have it, you can get it in their mind. The other thing is if you do something for 30 days straight, it starts to become a habit. Do it for 60 days, it starts really getting ingrained in you as something that you're starting to do. 90 days, that thing's a habit. And so if you're doing something, waking up early, after 3 months of waking up early, you're not going to ever get sleep in late again. That's a habit now. It's built in. So you have to build good habits with your kids when they're young. And you do that by, listening to people who have done, leadership schools. There's that book that Jocko wrote, a couple other SEALs. They wrote these books, some great leadership books. There's that one that Admiral McCraven did about making your bed. Excellent leadership book. So there's a whole bunch of, and I'm doing SEAL team things because those are guys that I know and I know who they are. I know they have good hearts. And so the leadership they're telling you is the leadership that we got in the SEAL teams. And I know it works because as soon as you get through BUDS, the basic training for SEALs, you get on a SEAL team, you're going to learn more and more and more. Every time you do something, you're learning something. And all those lessons is what they put in those books. So it's a book that almost any SEAL could write, but most SEALs don't write books. We don't have that discipline. It's not a habit, but those few guys did pick up the habit about writing and finish their writing and using all the stuff that we learned in the SEALs to actually put it on paper in a coherent way so that people can learn from it. Now, the books that I'm trying to write a book right now and I'm kind of failing it, but it's theology and metaphysics. And it's like really thick. And I showed some of it to you. It's about dimensional analysis and about actually traveling through dimensional spaces. And it's all based on the Bible. It's all based on our real world experience and what's going on right now on this earth. And I'm finishing it. I'm getting it done. It's a book I started in 2008 when I was in Afghanistan during the war. And this book should be out maybe in about a month. Okay. So that's going to be deep. I mean, it goes into some stuff that is going to be wild. It goes into Krishna. It goes into Siddhartha. It goes into how our spinal column and the chakras in our body are actually Christ-like. We have 33 vertebrae in our spine. Our chakras are 7, meaning the middle chakra being a 5. And the way the chakras work out, I have another one that actually starts at 5. But the 4th chakra being that middle in the 4th dimension time, everything goes down from there, 3, 2, 1, and it goes up from there, 5, 6, 7. And that's the way the chakras are working. And they also work in dimensional space like that. So if you have time as a 4th dimension, which is not actually a physical domain, all the rest of them are physical domains, whether it's physically someplace you can be there or it's particular or it's in spiritual. So, and that's all stuff I've written in the book. But There's a whole bunch of stuff I can go over. But if you think about Krishna, if you think about Siddhartha, they were able to decipher enough of Christ. And Christ is not a person. Christ is a path. Christ is the way. Jesus is the person. So Jesus Christ means Jesus walks the way. This is the way. Because there are certain things you can do that actually put you on the way, put you in Christ's path. Now, the Buddha, Siddhartha, was walking so closely to the path, the way, to the Christ-like consciousness, Christ consciousness, that he was able to ascend very far. But he wasn't Jesus, so he didn't get to complete it. The same thing with Krishna. He was walking the path, he was walking the Christ-like consciousness path, and he got really close. But you can see that a lot of examples in Krishna's and even Siddhartha's life copy and imitate Jesus' path, the way Jesus walked. Now, if you think about that, it doesn't make them Jesus, but it makes them very close to Jesus. It makes them a really good example, but not the full example. And so I can look at Buddha and I can say, I don't disrespect Buddha at all. I have great respect for Buddha. Siddhartha had a rough life and he went through all of it. And I respect everything he did and I respect where he went. And that goes into the chakras too. And the way our spine goes, and the way we can actually lift up into Christ consciousness and change dimensionally. And the reason we can do that, have great respect for even Krishna and all the other ones. I think it's Osiris, a bunch of other ones. You can look at all of these as patterns, as templates for Jesus, for God. Now, if you think about God, if God created God is the first one. God is the only substance. On the other side of God, through the mirror, is also God. Now, if you look in a mirror yourself, you're going to see yourself, right? But what's behind you? You see other stuff behind you. So if God is looking in a mirror and sees his image as the imagination of God, right? He can look behind himself then. If you're looking in a mirror, and I'm just using this as examples, God doesn't need a mirror and God doesn't look behind himself. God is everything. But that's the one substance. God is looking in a mirror and he imagines the image of himself. He sees that. Then he sees behind him is going to be Jesus, the first fractal, the first template of God is Jesus. The third template. So it's God, then that template is Jesus. Then you have number 3. So its template is God. Then another one is going to be Jesus. The next one would be the Holy Spirit, would be number 3. Then if you go behind that, it's going to be man and all the creation and all the other stuff behind that. Now, if you think about that, we're living about 4,000 something years after Adam. Now, if you think about how many years we are after Adam, you take everything that's happened throughout this history of the world at about, is it 4,900 or something? But whatever the time frame is, and I can do the time frame. Sometimes I mix the numbers up. If I'm looking at that, and if you have that first template right there after God is Jesus, and that's code. So the God code is right there, then the Jesus code. And when you're writing computer code, you have to build off the foundations of the code you wrote first, right? You don't just write code, all new code, and go, No computer writer in the world would do that. Start from scratch if you already have 4,000 years of code. They're going to take all that base code and they're going to write something on top of that. Then here's this new code. Here's this new thing. That's how he wrote Krishna. That's how he wrote Buddha. That's how God writes all code, because why would you break up the laws? That's why you have the laws of thermodynamics were applicable back in Adam's time, and you can apply them right now. You cannot create nor destroy anything. Matter, especially, and energy, especially, all of it. That's a law of thermodynamics, the first law. So if you think about that, if you think about all these people going, well, all this stuff happened before Jesus, and this is actually the real Jesus. They were all born of a virgin. They did this, they did that. They all floated in a basket, they did that. I said, because they're using code, they're using the same templates. Of course they're going to be saying, Moses was given all this information, downloaded. And the reason downloads even happen is because of there's all these records of our history that we have, and they're all inside of us because it's all written on a water code, It's people denied Jesus. They denied Jesus based on other figures and other historical context. They said, well, these guys did it too. Well, of course they did it, because they got these downloads of information through Christ-like consciousness, and then they saw what was going on. They said, I need to live closer to that, because that's the right way to live. And they're going to live the way Jesus lived. And then the same thing that goes with the code after Jesus. It's still all based on the same code. And we're losing ourselves if we think that we're making stuff up. It's all the same code. Now, the reason I know this is because I fasted for 6 days earlier this year, and I actually started getting the downloads. And the downloads are real. So if you fast and pray, when you're fasting, that's food and it's electronics. Get off all the social media, get off your phone, get off the computer, get away from all of it. 0 electronics for 6 days and no food. All you're doing is drinking water. And then you're going to see what I'm talking about, and you're going to get the downloads. You read the Bible, you pray, and you fast. You will see everything I'm talking about. You'll see yourself. because you will be connected up through the chakras and going into Christ-like consciousness up into your crown chakra. You're going to start seeing through your pineal. And it all works because it's all based on God. God made our bodies. He made our chakras. He made the crystals that I wear right now. Why would you think crystals are evil? Crystals aren't evil. People do evil, stupid stuff with crystals. But the crystals are made for God. You use for God's purposes, you can't be bad, you know? And so I'm using all of this, and I'm able to access everything I need to access, and I see it. So I've seen the other dimensions with my own eyes, with my own eye, actually. But I'm in my crown chakra. A lot of the time since I did that really deep meditation and deep fasting, I'm in there all the time now. I'm seeing stuff that would just blow your mind. That it's really hard to explain. I'm giving you a lot of stuff right now, and it's probably way more than you wanted. But I want people to know that if you fast and read the Bible and you pray, you will see what I'm talking about, and you will understand it, and you will see the way. This is all true. I'm not making this up.
This is actually very interesting to me because you just went off and you were explaining all this stuff that's very, very complex, and you boil it down, it gets to something that's universally very basic and true. It's like what Jordan Peterson says when people say is the Bible true? He's like, it's more than true. It's truth about truth. It's everything true put into one story. You know, we have to be willing to, kind of like how we started the conversation, we have to be willing to round our edges and say, I don't know everything. There's a lot about this world, this consciousness that I don't understand. Try to explain how Wi-Fi works to a dog. It's so far beyond anything you can comprehend. I think about that with our measly little human brains. Yeah. In about 5 days, I'm going to Denver for the Psychedelic Science Convention.
Oh, wow, I want to go.
It's really interesting to me because I think that one of the things that psychedelics do, and this kind of brought me into faith, which I'm new to, part of the reason is because I'm a very logical social science type thinker, and I go, virgin birth or, rising from the dead. I was like, this is all nonsense. That's not possible. And then I had experiences that made me go, what the hell do I know about what's possible or not? Who do I think I am that I have the world figured out? And once those experiences happen, and I think psychedelics can create those experiences, then it opens you up to maybe my understanding of what is possible or not, or what is true or not, isn't even close. Maybe I am wrong. And then once you have that willingness to be wrong, then you can start looking for truth again. Is that something?
It's 1,000%. When you start talking about psychedelics, I can tell you right now that I cured myself of traumatic brain injury. Now, in the SEAL teams, almost every SEAL probably has TBI.
I wanted to ask about that. Yeah. TBI from traumatic brain injury from concussive, but also within that is PTSD.
Car accidents. No, just stick it to TBI.
Okay.
So SEAL teams, we all have TBI because we're always breaching. We're blowing doors off stuff. We're blowing stuff out. We're on explosives a lot. That's our job. So we're blowing stuff up. So when you're blowing stuff up, the shock wave is going at 23,000 feet per second. It's going fast. And that shock wave, you think about a wave in the ocean, and that wave, when it hits you, it's a lot of power. That's the water moving at like slow. It's only moving 20, 30 miles an hour, pretty slow. Think about a car accident. If you're in a car accident going 30 miles an hour, it's hitting pretty hard. It's an impact. Now think about 23,000 feet per second, And these are the shock waves. These shock waves are big enough and hard enough, they can knock over buildings, these shock waves.
Yeah.
But, they're going through you. And so when it hits your skull, it's slowing it down, but it's changing the way it moves. And it's hitting your brain, which is in a liquid, then a liquid capsule around your brain. And you have more solid, which is your brain. So your brain's in there going boom, 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 boom. And it's doing that a lot of times all at once. And a shockwave is bouncing off all the buildings around you. That happens every time we blow a door off. And I've blown off, 1,000 doors, every SEAL team guy has. Yeah. And so then talk about the really big explosions, when we get hit by mortars or we're around some really big explosions. When a JDAM goes off, 2,000-pound bomb goes off right there, we're getting hit by some really hard shockwaves. So every SEAL has TBI. Traumatic brain injury is when the brain is in there getting bounced around enough that it hits really hard and it makes actual gray and black spots in your brain where the brain just dies. So, and there's a thing called neuroplasticity. And so remember, neuroplasticity is when a brain can actually rewire. So I have a whole bunch of black and gray spots all over my brain when I did the scan on me. And what the brain does is around a black spot right here, the brain will rewire around that black spot and wire itself up. That's what's called neuroplasticity. Now, how do you get that? You get that by doing years and years and years of reading, and doing these exercises, doing this stuff, or you can take psilocybin, do magic mushrooms, and it's magical. And so the thing is you can not trip. You never want to trip. You don't want to get psychedelics. You don't want to be psychedelic trip.
Smaller doses over time.
Very small doses. You call microdoses. So it's 0.3 grams every 3 days for 12 weeks. So it's very small doses, even smaller than that if you're lighter. So for me, I'm about 185, 190. And so I do 0.3 grams every 3 days for 12 weeks. I did that. I cured myself of TBI. I cured myself of PTSD. I cured myself of anxiety. I cured myself of transgenderism. I cured myself of being an alcoholic. I don't do anything anymore. If you want to ask me what I do, I read the Bible a lot and I watch YouTube. I don't watch TV for the most part. I watch YouTube. I watch what I want to watch to educate myself. If I'm not educating myself, then I'm failing myself. I'm failing my life's goal to become more educated and learn, because I know I don't know everything. I know I don't know a lot. I know out of all the breadth of knowledge of humankind right now would go from here to the moon in books. I know maybe 2 of those books. And I want to learn at least 2 or 3 more before I pass away. But I know that I'm never going to pass away because I am an eternal spiritual being right now in this 3rd dimension for a very short period of time. I'm here for a blink. I'm a 5th dimensional being living right now in the 5th dimension, just here visiting 3rd dimension. And I know that because I learned a lot. And I know every one of you out there are also higher dimensional beings, and you're here in the 3rd dimension right now trying to learn. And you volunteered to be here because if you're just up there in the 5th dimension, you don't volunteer. Just like I volunteered to go to the SEAL teams. I volunteered to go to the SEAL teams because when I'm here right now, I needed to challenge myself. In order to challenge myself, I knew I had to go to the hardest thing on earth to really beat myself up in this 3rd dimension. Now, if you're sitting there living your cushy little life and you're eating chocolate donuts your entire life and never had a challenge, well, then you're failing yourself here in this dimension right now. Now, do you think if you're a higher dimensional being, you send yourself here to the 3rd dimension to sit here around and watch TV and watch movies, watch these Hollywood jerks making millions of dollars off of doing some stupid stuff for you to sit there and eat chocolate donuts watching this silliness? That's not what you're here for. So put down your donut and stop watching TV. Get off that computer, get off social media and all the crap and start doing something. We're not here to be lazy. We're here to challenge ourselves. We're here to go find some people to challenge yourself. And the way you're challenging yourself is not on TV. It's not here right now watching us talk to each other. It's in person. And you need to find 11 friends. So you have to have 12 of you around that fire. And the 13th will come soon. So you need 12. You need 11 friends. You need 11 disciples. You need 12 salts that are in your body right now. There are 12 zodiacs. There are 12 apostles. There are 12 salts that keep you alive right now inside of your body. Everything is 12. You need 12 friends all together in one. Now it's you with 11. One of your friends has his 11. You might not be in one of his 11. Doesn't matter. Every person on earth needs to have 11. Then you make up your group of 12. Your group of 12 will be open to the 13th. And when you have your 12, that 13th will descend. I guarantee you, when me and my 12 get together, the 13th always descends. The 13th isn't in a body. When that 13th warrior descends, for me, it's warriors. And one of my warrior buddies is Craig Sawyer. He's the one that's fighting child sex trafficking. He's the one out there in Texas right now, taking out all those pedos and all those people that are even politicians right now and taking care of them and saving all those kids. He's one of my warriors that are with me. So when we get together, 13th always descends. And I'm part of a warrior clan. Saint Michael is my head guy. He's my commander. And my king is Jesus. And I'll tell you what, when my 13 gets together, you pedos out there, you better watch out because we're after you. Because we know what you're doing to the kids. And we know it's part of Hollywood. We know it's part of politics. And all you people out there are evil. The ones that are all these elite people. It's not conspiracy. This is a lot of truth going down. You're out there talking about pizza, you sick people. And I'm not standing for it anymore. Calling you out. That's the truth. I'm a warrior. I'm coming after you. I'm sick of this. I'm sick of people being silent. What I'm telling you is true. You need to find your 11 and get together in person and get around the bonfire. And I guarantee you the 13th will ascend. I know the 13th will ascend. And Jesus gave us one to ascend. He gave us the Holy Spirit. That Holy Spirit will be so powerful when you guys do that. I guarantee it. It doesn't matter what gender, what color, what race, whatever. We got to start throwing that stuff away. Jesus doesn't care about what race you are. Jesus doesn't care about what gender you are. We're so silly here on earth that we're separating ourselves by that stuff. So sick of that too. I'm sick of these politicians and these people trying to separate us. You know, I don't believe that. I don't believe that for an instant. I believe it's evil. It's evil, the separation we're doing right now. We shouldn't be separated by color. That's like what you do with jelly beans, because you like licorice more than the cherry or something. You don't separate people. You do that with food, and you do that with like your sodas or something. I don't drink soda pop anyway. But just separating by people, that's an evil agenda. Y'all need to cut that out. You ought to get separate, stop separating by gender too. It's silliness. You know, we have all this transgender crap going on. Let's go separating each other by gender. That's ridiculous. There's two genders, and it doesn't matter with the two. It does matter because of biology. It matters because of a lot of other stuff. But the thing is, when it comes to spirituality, when it comes to thinking, when it comes to intellect, when it comes to courage, when it comes to strength, when it comes to everything else that counts, it doesn't matter what gender. The thing that counts is spirituality. When it comes to things that count, none of this stuff matters. That's who you are when you're talking about inside. Your integrity, your honor, and who you are as a spirit, and where you going when this is all over. When we're at the fifth dimension, we're sitting there at the table with Jesus, but it's not going to matter. We're all going to be sitting there laughing about all the stuff that happened here on Earth. There's a bunch of hoo-hots, a bunch of crap. So if you all are out there separating people by color, you're wrong. You're sitting there thinking somebody's better because of what color they are. You're wrong. You're sitting there thinking somebody's better because of what gender they are or what gender, whatever. You're wrong. Cut it out. So sick of this. Makes me angry.
I hear you.
Find your 11 to start doing the hard work.
Find your 11.
You said that you sought out the Navy SEALs because in this, you were saying in the third dimension, like you're trying to make the most of it? Look for the greatest challenge? Yeah, was that why you joined the SEALs? You're like, I'm going to look for the greatest challenge on Earth?
1,000%. It was like, well, I mean, it was Green Berets or SEALs. The Green Berets are equal to SEALs. Yeah. We just have different missions. The Marine Corps, I mean, those guys, Force Recon and all the stuff those guys are doing, same as SEALs, different mission. So, but for me, the SEALs made the most sense. You know, because it was water, and I was a water person. I was a lifeguard, scuba diving.
Okay.
Went into SEALs. So I was already a water baby. I grew up swimming when I was in before kindergarten. You know, it is one of those where your dad throws you in a water.
That's the big difference, right? I mean, they all do stuff, but the difference in the SEALs is the water stuff, the
100%.
drowning proof.
Except they only spend the last 20 years in the desert. It's freaking ridiculous. We lost our way, you know. It's what we did in Afghanistan, you know, and I'll say it to everybody in Afghanistan, all the people I dealt with in Afghanistan. If you dealt with me personally, you know who I am. You know, I saved a lot of lives in Afghanistan, and I made a lot of difference in Afghanistan. I was trying really hard, building schools and trying to do stuff good. And I apologize to Afghanistan. I apologize to every human in Afghanistan, every person in Afghanistan. I apologize. I think our government should do the same thing. Yeah. I went to Iraq too. I apologize to every Iraqi. I apologize to Iraq. They lied. They used the sorrow of a nation. They used the sorrow and the pain
9/11.
Of 9/11 in order to go to Iraq, and it was wrong. They took our entire country and they hijacked our emotions about what happened, and they made us go there. And they tricked us with that emotion. And that's shameful. You know, it's shameful on Bush. It's shameful on all those cronies and everybody that voted for him. That's every congressperson should be ashamed of themselves. Until every congressperson that voted for that war, until they too apologize, we are a broken nation. Until our nation apologized to Iraq and everything that happened, then we're broken. And that's why I'm doing it myself right now. I apologize to Iraq. I apologize to Afghanistan. I apologize to Somalia and Africa. I apologize to Europe. I apologize to everyone in Asia and everywhere I went to in Asia during my 20 years in the SEALs. We did a lot of stuff wrong. We also did a lot of stuff right. When I was in a lot of those countries, we did foreign and internal defense. We did a lot of instruction. We did a lot of teaching. We did a lot of good in all these countries. And I don't want you to forget that also. But we also did some bad stuff. And I think the good that I did was far outweighs the bad that I did personally. And so for the apologies that I'm making right now, it might be an 80 good and a 20 bad for me personally. But I take responsibility for that 20% bad that I did. No, you can't put percentages on it. I'm just saying for
yeah, no, I understand.
I did a lot of good. And I just feel that every warrior out there, every soldier, every sailor, every Marine, everybody in the Coast Guard, everybody in the Air Force, we need to start taking credit, responsibility, and accountability for what we did. And I did that. I did that when I had my awakening. I took guns out of my house when I threw them out in the trash. I took guns on my front porch. These are Belgian Browning guns. These are guns that are worth about $5,000 to $10,000 each. I was on my front porch, a concrete porch, and I had them by the barrel, and I was smashing them stock first, and I was smashing them into the concrete. I took my guns and smashed them apart.
Why?
All my guns are gone. I took guns that are worth $10,000 each. I was smashing them on the concrete, and I had them in a fire pile. I had them there as wood in the fire. And I burned them. Everything I did, I went to that extent, how bad it was, how evil we have done as a country, that we have taken good people. We've made good people into weapons. I had the military take me and made me into a weapon. They made me into a weapon to do bad stuff. Now, I'm not denying that I'm a warrior. I'm still a warrior. I'm a spiritual warrior. My weapon is the Bible. My weapon is my spirit. My weapon is me living in a Christ-like manner as an example that I can have a light shining in me so bright that my love is my weapon. It's not lead and bombs and bullets. I can project love in such a way right now that will disarm you. And I can do that through having a Christ consciousness. That's all we have to do. You can use the Bible as a weapon. You can use your own love, use your own heart coming out of the heart chakra and just like such a projection that I will be able to save people. And I'm not hurting people. I'm saving them. That is my weapon. The devil's way is bullets and bombs. The devil's way is hurting. Now, if you're loving people, how does that hurt? And truth is love. Now, if truth hurts, that's what I'm going to tell you right now, is the truth about being transgender. It's all a lie. Transgenderism is a lie. What I got tricked into, what I was given was a devil's potion. What I was told was, with my amount of crazy I had going inside of me, was an anxiety, was PTSD, was traumatic brain injury, was being taught as a child that being raised by narcissists, that I was told that it was about me and what I felt. Now, if you know what a narcissist is, it means that they are number one and everything revolves around them. I was taught that. And so that became my battle cry, was that it was about me and what I could get out of everything. Now that turns into humanism. Now then humanism right now in the modern day turns into transhumanism. Turns into you as a human can do something to yourself to fulfill yourself into a better you through drugs. That's using drugs for you to become better. That would be meth, that's cocaine, that's all the other stuff. It's even when you smoke dope. You do that because you're a human and you think humanism is it and you're more important. And then you can get yourself to a higher plane. That also goes with psychedelics. If you're doing psychedelics, get high, you think you're doing it in order for you to become a better person. Now, if I'm doing it as a healing thing. God gave us psychedelics as a medicine, not as something for you to become a better human. It's for you to heal what is broken. Now, I got broken because of traumatic brain injury. I got broken as a PTSD. I got broken as a lot of things. God gave us a medicine for me to reset back and do what I was born as. I was born perfect. Then me as a human and me as everything that happened to me made me imperfect. Now, I want to get back to my perfect state. God gave us psychedelics. As long as you don't abuse them, you're going in God's way. That's the trick. Now, if you're using psychedelics, if you want to be a better human, you want to become this enlightened something, that's when you start tripping. That's when you think you give them more. That's the wrong way to do it. That doesn't work, right? Do the same thing with marijuana. I can smoke some cannabis as long as I'm doing it as a healing herb, then I'm fine. And I'm going to use it that way.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with every herb. Now, medication, if you're taking man-made pharmaceuticals, those are transhumanism. That's you as a human trying to do something more than God. God gave you pain. God gave you migraines because he wants you to see that something's wrong. He wants you to become a better back to what you are as a first human. So he gave you the pain in order for you to realize you have something going on wrong. So then you have to find out what's God's medicine for me to fix this. If you have a cold and you have a runny nose, well, that's mullein leaves. So go take your mullein and heal the symptom, then not the symptom, heal what's wrong for you to get back to square one. The symptom is not for you to take Benadryl to make you dry out and do that. You have to do other stuff to take God's medicine to get back to square one. That's where we're messing up with medicine. Those doctors, they only want to cure the symptoms. They don't want to cure what's really wrong. If they cure what's really wrong, they can't sell you any more medications to cure more symptoms, right? So if you're taking man-made pharmaceuticals, you're transhuman. If you're taking God's medicine, then you're going back to square one to be God's child as a pure thing that was born that way. Being born the way I was born is my perfect way. For me to be Christopher and a male, and for me to think I can make myself better because I have TBI, because I have anxiety, because I have some sex demons, because I have a sexual proclivity towards because of something, how I grew up. I had sexual trauma and those other stuff when I was a kid, which all these things wrapped together. I'm going, what am I in to do? And I've retired from the military. I'm going, well, I want to be back to, I want to be whole. I want to be good. And I'm retired and I can do whatever I want. So I was going, well, you can do this, do that. And I go, well, okay. So I started doing transgender stuff. That was surgery. So I'm changing God's vessel because of symptoms. My symptoms were TBI. My symptoms were anxiety.
Yeah.
My symptoms were autogynephilia. My symptoms of sexual trauma as a kid. My symptoms, all these symptoms together, you can't cure that by doing surgery. Are you kidding me? That's like a kid that has like an eating disorder and curing them by tying half their stomach off. I have a person in my family that had eating disorders and kept saying, I don't want to be skinny. I want to be skinny. They weighed like 120.
Yeah.
I want to be thin. I want to be thinner because her husband doesn't want to have sex with you. So you want to be thinner. Well, what's going on there? So there's your husband is doing something to you and making you feel bad that you want to be skinnier. So you get half your stomach pulled out. 3/4 of somebody in my family, their stomach is cut out of their body to have almost no stomach, and all these intestines are cut out, which made them automatically super skinny because now you have half your guts are gone. And then what does that do to your digestion and everything else? We're not going to eat very much because your stomach is about the size of a peanut, and what you're doing is you're taking a bunch of stuff that are symptoms and other terrible things wrong with our society, that a husband can only have sex with you because they want you to be skinny. They want you to weigh 90 pounds. What kind of freaking thing is that? There is so much mental illness going on right there in one couple that you can't even explain. And so that's what happened to me as transgenderism was me trying to cure God's perfect vessel that was broken in many, many ways by doing surgery, by taking drugs. And once you have a kid who's on puberty blockers, you're chemically castrating that kid. Once you have a kid that has a double mastectomy, it's like a 12-year-old.
I had Chloe Cole on the podcast. Yeah.
It's unbelievable what they're doing to these kids now. So you cannot cure symptoms with medical stuff. You want to cure what's really wrong. You want to cure the underlying real problem. The problem is we are broken as humans right now because they have broken us. They have broken us by chemtrails in the skies. They've broken us by giving us poisoned food. We have to get back to eating raw. You have to get back to eating the good stuff. I have herbs in my kitchen right now. It's almost all stuff I picked myself. I go out and I forage all over the earth, and I fill these little bottles, mason jars full of this stuff. I have 1,000 mason jars in my house right now full of everything I need to cure anything that's ever wrong with me. But I'm actually curing the real problems to make me back to square one what God made me. This vessel that's totally open to feel the universe and have the Holy Spirit inside of me every day, every second of my life. That's how we get cured. The Holy Spirit is within you. You can cure yourself of every ailment. There's 3 ways your cells, and every cell, remember a proton, neutron, the electron a mile away? What's in between there is God, right? So every cell in your body is made up of proton, neutron, electron, right? Every one of those has a lot of God in it. So every cell in your body has a chance to be 69% good, 15% neutral, and 15% bad. Or it might be 15% good, 69% neutral, and 15% bad. Actually, that makes more sense. Maybe that's it. I've always said 15% good, 69 neutral. No, it's 15% good, 69 neutral, because that's the pyramid. So everything is split up into 69, 15, 15, and 1. That's 100%. Consciousness is split up into 69, 15, 15, 1. And it's the way God splits up too. God, 69, 15, Jesus, 15, Holy Spirit. 1%, all the 1%, and everything is free will. Because you have free will built into everything. And this is a consciousness model that I discovered when I was in a very high state of Holy Spirit consciousness. It's when I went way over to the other side. I can show you the mathematics of a lot of this and how we really broke it down. Now, if you think about every cell in your body has a chance to be good, has a chance to be neutral, and has a chance to be bad. When it's bad is when they're doing stuff like cancer and it's doing everything else. Now, if you get the right resonance and the right frequency, then you're able to change that thing into the neutral or good. And this is fact. You can do that through herbals. You can do that through vibrational resonances. So this has been proven many, many times. Has been covered up in history by scientists over and over again. But they cover it up and they kill you off. They don't want people to know this. They make money off pharmaceuticals. They don't make money off of me doing, I use sound tuning forks, and I do it with herbals. And I can cure pretty much anything. Not a problem. I am the healthiest. I haven't taken a pharmaceutical in over 2 years. At all, 0. I don't eat processed food. I don't do any of that. I barely have to eat anymore. They ask why the castles made in the old days had no bathrooms. They didn't need them because they were living during 1,000-year reign of Christ, And that's when they built all those castles. They didn't need bathrooms. So all you need is the 12 salts and sunlight. Remember I said 12 plus 1? There are 12 salts that your body needs, and they line up with the 12 of the zodiac. The 12 salts plus sunlight is all you need. If you do that, you only have to defecate and empty your body once a week. And it can be almost once every 12 days, but about once a week, because our bodies have been so messed up that we defecate more than we actually have to. So in the old days, during the days of the castles, during the 1,000-year reign of Christ, they didn't need bathrooms. How do you like that for weird data? Oh, you need water also. It's water and sunlight. So it's water, sunlight, and the 12.
Just live off your fat reserves.
Well, it's not even a fat reserves. It's what do we really need? You don't even need, fat reserves are a myth too. The fat reserves that we hold are way more than we actually need. So you always have fat reserves because it does go into it. But the 12 salts are gained through a lot of different foods. When you're eating those different foods, you will end up getting some of the other stuff that you need also. Celery is a huge one. It's a really big. I think that's celery alone gives you 3 of the 12 salts. And then kale gives you 2 of them. There's a whole bunch. I have a whole chart of everything you need to eat. If you eat these things out of this chart I give you, you won't need to eat anything else ever.
Chris, there's so much this is the first conversation we've had. And it's like just tapping into your mind a little bit. I mean, it's what's it like in there's so much going on. There's so many numbers and it's the macro and the micro. There's all of this stuff. Were you always like this, or is this also a product of these really severe situations that you've been in for so many years, in war, seeing the things that you've seen, doing the things that you've done, the challenges that you've had to overcome, the dark place that you've had to go to, and then when you could have easily rung the bell physically, metaphorically, whatever it is, so many times that you just like, I'm not giving up, I'm not going to die in this situation. I have no idea. But like, did that forge you into the way you are today? Because, and I don't mean this as an insult, but you're unusual. You're not usual. Right?
Yeah.
Like the way that you're talking, the way that, obviously, like, you know what I mean? Like, were you always like this, or is this a product of your 20 plus years?
Product. It's a lot of product of what I've gone through up until this point, but I can also show you on the back bookshelf right here. I can show you a stack of journals that I've been keeping since I was a kid. I can show you things that I've written, like poetry, and these journals, stacks of them, just with all kinds of stuff written. And sometimes I flip through them and I find stuff I'm talking about to you right now that I wrote 10 years, 15 years ago. And so all this stuff is stuff I've been working on for a long time. Now, also, if you take, it's actually the square root of 1 of the population of Earth, 1% of the population. So if you do 1% of the population of Earth right now and take the square root of it, it's 8,000 people. When those 8,000 people come together in those groups of 12, that'll be when everything starts ending. Something I saw. There's something to think about. So, but when you start talking about numbers, I was like, oh yeah, the square root of 1%.
There's so many numbers going on in your head, right? Like all the time.
That's why sometimes I mix stuff up too, and then I got to go back and I go, oh wait, what about that? There's a lot, but that's why I want to write that one little book right now. And I think it's only about 100 pages. It'll be really thick, but it's going to be one that is going to make people question a lot of stuff. Because I don't want you to believe a word I said right now. Nobody out there, if you ever listen to this, don't believe anything. Please go look it up for yourselves, and you'll find everything for the truth for yourself. It's the same way that I say to everybody, these are truths that I found over a long period of time and over me being awakened. I am fully awake. And that's something that I can't say for a lot of people. And I think you too, Will. And that's why I agreed to talk to you, because I've seen you. I've seen how you speak. You're awake. And we just need more people to wake up. More people got to wake up.
I love what you just said. Like, it's not just take what I'm like, because people will listen, because we've been talking for almost an hour. Like, there's a lot there, and people are like, what is he talking about with this? It's like, it's kind of like Eddie Bravo. It's like, look into it, not just take an expert, quote unquote, an expert's word for it, but actually try to seek disconfirmation, something I always talk about. Like, if you think that like some of the stuff that you just talked about, Chris, and people go, well, that's crazy. You have 2 choices. You can either just dismiss it as crazy, or you can go, let me see. And then that's how I became down this like spiral of whatever conspiracy theories or whatever it is because I've been a history teacher for so long that I've just seen these patterns throughout history of governments lying to us about war over and over and over again. And then when people are like, well, we should support Ukraine because it's like, what? It's like, wait a second. When we're ignoring patterns, what's the point of history class?
Exactly.
No, like when you said like they are doing this, they are manipulating our food and our drugs and stuff like that. The way that I tend to frame that for like my students and for people on social media and stuff is like maybe there's some level of it with like the WEF, but I don't know if it's like just a cabal of people twisting their mustache. I think that it might be, but I think that there is an element of just human incentives. Is the pharmaceutical, these are corporations. They have one job, it's to raise shareholder value. And any way that they're going to do that, they're going to do it. And then they're going to grow and they're going to become these trusts that the food companies are also owned by the pharmaceutical company. They own them all together, and then it raises shareholder values for these people. Like, it's not crazy when you start to look at like just regular human incentives for normal people. And when you get these kinds of resources, what you're going to do with those resources, then it starts to become a lot more normal. I think there's almost a problem with the way that you communicate sometimes, Chris, because it's so out there. I don't think that what you're saying is wrong in many, many things. I think you're right about a lot of things. I think that it's so many steps ahead of where the average person who might be listening to this is at, that they get lost. So the more we can pull it back to the simple basics and then get there, it's like kind of like probably how you are with everything. Like you do everything to its super extremes, and most people don't. Most people's like, if I gotta get up and go to a Pilates class at 6 a.m., that's the hardest workout of my life. Meanwhile, you've been a Navy SEAL, and it's like there's just levels to the game. You know, you understand what I'm saying about like
many levels.
Stuff?
Here's what I gotta tell you is, I'm throwing a lot of stuff out because you have a different audience of people that listen to you, and what I'm trying to say is I'm giving you a lot, but if people get kind of piqued curiosity about one thing I said and they start really go down one rabbit hole, pull one thread, go down one of those rabbit holes that I just gave you, and they're going to find that one rabbit hole is true. You go, oh, well, I wonder what else is true. Then go find another rabbit hole. So I've given you about
that's how it happens.
Rabbit holes already. So here's another one. There are 13 families, and these 13 families go back to Rome. And this Rome and the fall of Rome is a big false thing that happened. Rome never fell. Rome just transferred a lot of its power over to Jesuits. You have a white pope, a black pope, and a gray pope. Now, right now, for the first time in history, the black pope, the Jesuit pope, is in charge of the white throne, the white pope spot. And it's never happened before. Then you have the 13 families. So the 13 families are in charge of that and really running it. And that's the face of who they are, would be the black pope. Then you have the gray pope, who I can't really talk about right now. Then you have the Freemasons and everything else. So all of this is all connected. So if you take the Vatican and you have the Vatican spire, what do they call it? Like the Washington Monument. You have these freaking obelisks in front of the Vatican. You have one in front of London. You have one in front of Washington, D.C., the Washington Monument. You have 3 areas on Earth that are actually outside of the governing control of the country that they sit in, that they reside in. So you have the Vatican is inside of Italy, but it's not controlled by Italy. You have London, the area in London I'm talking about, well, the banks are, they're in the United Kingdom, but it's not controlled by the United Kingdom. It has its own control. You have Washington, D.C. is in America, but it's not controlled by America. It's outside of its areas, District of Columbia. These 3 areas are the 3 centers of power for the entire Earth right now, the realm that we live in right now. The Vatican is religious power, and they're the overarching kind of like the headquarters. They're like the general officer. Then you have London, is a banking, the economic control, and then the corporations, everything flow from there, from London. Then you have Washington, D.C. That's the military power. That's the hammer. So basically you get the orders out of the Vatican, funded by London, and then enforced by Washington, D.C. That's why we went to Iraq. That's why we went to Afghanistan. That's why we went everywhere we went for the last 30 years. Now, it hasn't been forever, It's only been since maybe the Civil War this has been going on. So before that, we were doing pretty good. But then everything fell apart. Now, you're going to find all this is true. The Titanic had a lot of guys on it who were actually Astor and a whole bunch of those other guys. Titanic had a lot of people on here that were trying to break up the cabal. And when all those guys are dead right now in one fell swoop, who owned the Titanic? That's kind of curious. Who funded the building of Titanic? Oh, that's kind of curious. Why was the captain also part of an organization that was also there? Why was he speeding through iceberg-infested waters? And what was the other ship that looked a lot like the Titanic that also is kind of mysteriously gone? This is kind of weird, And what was that meeting that went on in 1917 on Jekyll Island? And then what was that new reserve, the Federal Reserve that was made up? That they built the Federal Reserve and got us off the gold standard? Oh, that's kind of curious. All this stuff and all these threads go back to a few different things. World War One. Who funded both sides of World War One? And every king and queen and everybody that was a leader of a country in Europe at the time, they were all related in Europe. They were all talking to each other when World War One kicked off. Isn't that curious? And World War Two, are you kidding me? That was just an extension of World War One because of the Weimar. All this stuff. You're a history teacher.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous that more Americans don't understand this. World War One was manufactured.
I said
and
something.
Manufactured World War One just made the Weimar Republic, made this and this happen, actually manufactured World War Two. And the Korean War, are you kidding me? We have to have a big boogeyman on this earth as a really, really bad example of what happens when a harsh dictator's in charge. Then we can sit here with a minor dictator in America. We're under dictatorship. Are you kidding me? So we're a dictatorship in America. And we're going, well, no, we're free. We're capitalism. We do this and do this. Look at North Korea. So we need on earth one really, really bad dictator for the other dictators to point at. Well, see, you're lucky you're not over there.
Lesser of two evils, right?
Terrible dictatorship here in America.
Yeah, that's our whole situation is lesser of two evils. It's like Trump.
We're slaves to America.
Trump and
we're
Biden.
Pure slaves.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I hear you. I said that when the January 6th attack happened, I said, oh, this has a feeling a little bit as a history teacher as the Reichstag fire. And people were like, what's that? I was like,
oh God, Reichstag.
Yeah. So it's like that,
1930, no, it was 29 or
30. Giving power to the Nazis because they were like, look at the danger that these communists are. And like, did the communists even start the fire? So
look at the danger of these conservatives. And then wait, what about all the fires that were going on all the summer?
Right.
The whole summer fires, and you kidding me?
But that's the thing is propaganda works. I teach my kids about Edward Bernays. I teach them about the way that, public relations, was like this, the way propaganda was used. Sort of propaganda was used during Nazism to get you to hate your enemy, your neighbors and stuff like that. I mean, yeah, I love what you said. Like just pull at one of these threads and just go down. And then once you see that, that there is more, at the very least, there's more to the story than you've been sold. And that is just, and should be enough for you to round your edges and open up to different ideas.
Hey, let's do Flat Earth, right? Flat Earth. Admiral Byrd. Who was the guy before Admiral Byrd? And why did they have maps of Antarctica before Antarctica was discovered? So there's maps going back into the 1400s that actually chart Antarctica and show where the coastline is and everything. All of it in 14 is like way, way back. And so then you talk about Admiral Byrd discovering, doing all this stuff. And why is it that when you look at the horizon, and it's always flat and always rises to you? And then you start talking about the flat earthers. They can look across all these channels, look across the Great Lakes, and you can see a city. And you're supposed to have 8 inches of drop per mile. And so if I'm looking across the Great Lake and I can see Chicago, and I'm looking across to like 80 miles and I can see it, well, that's impossible if the Earth is really a globe. And you go, what's a refraction of this, refraction of that? Well, remember I said templates in the beginning? So if you have the Garden of Eden, it's a template. The Garden of Eden is like first dimension, right? So if you have a first dimensional code, and this is what it is, and that dimensional code starts expanding when we leave the Garden of Eden, it's going to, of course, be flat. So that's a first code. So the first code that was written is flat. And so you're not going to get rid of all that code. And so if we're on a globe right now, and if you go before Copernicus, everything was flat for all those years. There was a time that Plato wrote about where there was no moon. And there is a time on this earth when we had no moon. The moon was created after a time. And so that moon is up there right now, but you still have the first code that was written. Now, when that first code actually applies, it applies to flat earth also. We're not living on a flat earth anymore, but the code for the flat does exist. That's what you have to mix it up. So both things can exist. We can live on a flat earth with flat earth code, but we're living on a globe now. Both can exist.
Chris, you're so interesting to talk to. Yeah, because that's interesting. Yeah, because you have like Johnny Kim, for the former Navy SEAL, who's like a NASA astronaut and stuff like that. And I was like, yeah. So if things are changing,
just like Krishna, and just like Buddha exists, but so does Jesus. But Jesus was the one that did it correctly. Those other guys were just old code.
Yeah.
I have to talk about just like computer code or like
I get it.
Book. It's just another chapter in the book. Doesn't mean you get rid of all those old chapters.
That's
right?
Interesting.
Those old chapters exist. The old chapter of Flat Earth still exists, but the new chapter is written right now where it's globe. Just like when you're talking about the universes and about all the other stuff. So we're writing the code right now for the further dimensions. So if I'm living in a fifth dimension right now, Jesus and the angels and all those guys live in a 6th dimension, and God is in a 7th dimension. Then it wraps back around to the 1st dimension. It always wraps back around.
I really dig how, like, the way that you're talking does not sound as absurd today than it would have even 5 years ago, because there's stuff like Graham Hancock with like the ancient apocalypse and stuff like that. I think that it helps. You know, you've been on Joe Rogan's program. I think him having the massive platform that he does, and he's a very open-minded guy.
Yeah,
he's
a little bit.
Yeah, well, he's willing to bring people on with different
He closed me down on like 5 subjects. I was sitting there on Joe Rogan and I'm sitting there talking about something like I am right now. You're just going, oh, that's interesting. Oh, wow, I want to look into that.
Yeah.
Joe shut me down. I started talking about giants I started talking about giants on Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Giants existed, you know, it's Nephilim, you know, and giants were here on Earth. There were giant bones in the mounds right here. This was a mound building society here in America before we got here. So, and those are the giants. The giants roamed America before humans, you know, and that's a fact. You know, Smithsonian has covered up tons of this stuff. As soon as I brought up giants, you know, Joe shut me down. It's kind of laughing. He jumped into aliens. Yeah. So there is something going on.
So, well, yeah, why is the giants are crazy, but aliens aren't? You know what I mean? Like, it's an interesting...
Well, I'll tell you why. Do you want to know why? Because we're close to end times right now, and we're getting ready to be raptured. So all the Christians are going to be raptured off of this earth. So they want UFOs, and they want a bunch of aliens that in the past have picked up a lot of people off the earth and done experiments and done all this weird stuff. They want you to believe that aliens are here and are grabbing humans off of the earth since that thing with Roswell. But they want you to believe that since Roswell, aliens have been here grabbing humans. They want you to believe that. There's also this thing called Project Bluebeam that I know exists because I've seen it, and they want to be able to project up there and make all those things happen to blame the rapture on the aliens. Then anyone who is left over will go, oh my God, the aliens took all these people. We need a world leader to help us because we're being attacked by all these aliens. Then that's when a real satanic agenda happens, because there's going to be one world leader. There's going to unite the entire world against the aliens. And then you guys are left over here, because I'll tell you what, I volunteered to God to stay here behind after the rapture, because you're going to need a lot of good hardcore Christians. You're going to need warriors here on earth to stay behind after the rapture. And they're going to have to coach, you're going to have to preach, you have to fight it, because it's going to be bad. Because there's so many people on earth that are going to believe in aliens after that happens. But the aliens don't exist. The aliens are humans. Let that sink in. The aliens do not exist. The aliens are humans that didn't get reset back in 1854. In 1854, there was a huge reset. There was a mud flood. There was this happening. There was that happening. Things were destroyed, and a lot of humans got killed. And the only ones who were left over were some that were really bad. And that's when everything started going bad. That's when it went into the Civil War and all the other stuff that happened. It went into Titanic. It went into huge control by big money people. I tell you what, the reset was nothing compared to what's going to happen soon with the rapture. It's going to be devastation. And the humans that are left here on earth, they're going to need to have the good word preached. They're going to need warriors, spiritual warriors, to just love and preach the word and know the word. Now you have to start memorizing the Bible right now. Because if you're left behind, you're going to have to say exactly what those verses are, because they're going to try to destroy every Bible on earth. It's going to happen. So Project Bluebeam, look it up. CIA project. They can project things into 3-dimensional holograms. You've seen it with that singer. Who's that weird satanic singer that was on stage and he disappeared real quick? Weird stuff. That's low tech, but it looks so real. There's a lot of low tech that happens here on Earth that people are going, oh my God, that's real. But it's a hologram. It's Project Bluebeam. When they do the one for real, they also have the thing called the Voice of God. And I have been part of that program when I was doing the secret projects I was doing. And this is in public right now in real small doses. There's this thing called the Voice of God. They can project a signal through the air like 10 miles away in a really wide beam, and everyone is going to hear in between your eardrums. You're going to hear voices, and you're going to swear it's the voice of God. It's going to tell you what to do. It's going to tell you everything. You'll be convinced beyond convincing that it's actually God speaking to you. And you can do whatever it says, because you're going to see the images too. You'll see Jesus, probably a fake Jesus, up there in the clouds after the rapture, coming down. Oh my gosh, that's the real thing. And you hear voices to do this, do that. It's all going to be fake. It's all blue beam. And it's all projected by humans. And it's going to be all human-driven. It's all satanic. Satan has to use humans because he doesn't have all the power. Satan has to use humans because he's not all present. He is not all present. He is not all time. He's not all powerful, and he's not all knowing. Satan doesn't have any of this stuff. The only one that has that is God. So he has to use humans to do his dirty work. As Project Bluebeam and its project, can't remember the name of the project, but it's called Voice of God. It'll project the sounds and project the voices into your head. This is all real stuff. I did a lot of these projects when I was in the SEAL team. I was in the middle of the Pentagon. I was working with the CIA in the bowels of the CIA, in the bowels of the Pentagon, deep in that thing. Now you're telling me an airplane can attack a fortress with 10-foot walls and make the whole thing collapse? One airplane with fuel that burns hotter, it can burn concrete, it can burn steel. It doesn't happen. That was Project Bluebeam.
The stuff like I did explain what MK Ultra was to fellow teachers. I would explain that to my class.
They MK Ultra'd me. I was part of that program. You know how you beat MK Ultra? Project Monarch is the bigger hierarchy. So MK is under. Monarch is a higher program, and Monarch has a whole bunch of them under it. So there's a lot of things under Monarch. So you want to break Monarch? Smoke a joint. Wow. Marijuana breaks Monarch control. So if you think you're under Monarch control, if you think you're one of those actresses and all that stuff, they're all doing the stuff and mind control and all that, you want to break the mind control? Smoke a joint. Marijuana breaks Monarch. All of it. That's true. I've broken you. I'm not under any control right now. God's control is not control. I voluntarily give myself all of my free will, the 1% free will that I have inside of my body right now. I give all of that to God, the real God, the God, the Father, the creator of everything, the All-Father, the real God, and Jesus. And Jesus is here right now. I've broken all that and I gave it all back to God. I am not a slave to anyone. I voluntarily serve God right now. Because I know he's the God of all gods.
Need some sort of anchor. That's what I like it for. It's like some sort of anchor. Let me ask you, Chris, what's the reception like for you, who you are today, and like when you came out as transgender and everything like that, as you've developed this kind of outside the box thinking, I suppose? I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I mean, you're deeply looking for truth. You're finding all of this stuff. I believe you when you talk about like the math and this and stuff. I've been duped so many times by like, that can't be true. And then it turned out to be true that now, yeah, I am really open-minded. And that I could get duped that way too. Some of what you're saying might be nonsense. And I'm going to be going on a Google search and being like, oh, well, you got me.
I have, the one is universal one. So this first one is going to go into God and Jesus. Universal one, right, is God and the Holy Spirit, right? And the next one I do is probably going to be Stonehenge, the pyramids. Oh, it's the pyramids. The next one is Giza. The Great Pyramid, a small pyramid, The next one is water. H2O. So you can read it. I'm trying to read. I can't see. So H2O is oxygen, is equivalent to God, and two hydrogens, Jesus and the Holy Ghost. The next one,
Earth,
sun, and moon. The sun and the moon are the same size. Look in the sky. Yeah. You don't believe what the scientists tell you. Look up there and see what size they are. The sun and the moon are the same size. What's the next one? Oh, Solomon's Temple. So it's Solomon's Temple.
Solomon's Temple.
You have Boaz and Joaquin. So that's God, and then the two.
So they have the same kind of structure.
Then you have a Norse theology. You have Odin, you have Freya, and Thor. And the next one, it might be
Greek.
Oh, Greek. You have Zeus, and you have the other ones. Remember I said old templates. These are old templates. So these are all templates of God and Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Then you might have the Stonehenge. Oh, no, it's Egypt. So you have Ra, and you have Geb and Nut. So Ra, Geb, and Nut. So even if you go to Stonehenge, Stonehenge would be the oldest. Stonehenge is going to have the great, and you have the path of Stonehenge and what direction it aims in, and the correlation of Stonehenge. So take Stonehenge as a correlation to Giza in directional and the way it lines up in the earth and everything, which also lines up with Solomon's Temple. So those are the physical earth monuments that line up with God, all of them. And everything else I showed you all lines up as a template. That's why you talk about Zeus, you talk about Norse mythology, you talk about Greek, you talk about all of it. Egyptian, that's why I said Ra, Nut, and Geb. All of those are templates for God. God the Father, the big one, and then Jesus and Mary, Jesus and the Holy Spirit.
It's patterns, right? It's like the Fibonacci thing, the circle of like conch shells and everything.
Oh, I can show you some really cool stuff. Oh, there's Stonehenge and everything else when you go into Stonehenge.
Yeah.
So it's all the directional analysis here in this plane. The Earth realm is a plane of existence. Oh, this goes into Fibonacci and stuff of that stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, this is causal theory. This is when I prove God through causal theory and all that. Then it goes into consciousness. So I teach these classes too.
Where do you teach it?
I do it with something called the Dodge News Club, and I'm going to release all the audio soon. I wish I had my one. This is something, the mathematical analysis and the code of God. This lines it up to go into this goes into Genesis, and each verse in Genesis and how everything was created. And it goes on from that. Oh, and if you take Fibonacci sequence, I think it's some of it's on here. If you take Fibonacci sequence, and this is a singularity, this whole thing wraps on itself. And it goes into this right here, which I'm going into. Oh, this is puzzle pieces. But if you take Fibonacci sequence and you take the big square, right? Start with one square, perfect square, right? And that's God. You take that square and you cut it in half. That's God and God looking inside the mirror. And cut that in half. That's God looking in the mirror and Christ and the Antichrist. If you take the Antichrist and cut that in half, then the Antichrist will be Satan and Lucifer. Take Jesus and cut it in half. That's Jesus and the Holy Spirit. That's Christ consciousness. Take all these and keep splitting them in half, and you keep going half and half and half. Then you take that and you see it's a spiral going here and a little spiral. Then it spirals way out like that. And it goes down to the bottom. The two bottoms, if you split them out, will both meet at God in the middle in a singularity. Those two singularities start here, which is Christ consciousness and Antichrist consciousness. And you do this, and it spins up. What does that make? It makes a heart, the shape of a heart. Turn that upside down, and do that up above. It does another one. So then you have these in infinity in a three-dimensional sequence. So you take a heart, and you do another heart on top of it with two foci, with a one focus point in the bottom. The two foci is Christ and Antichrist. Then you have the one below is God. These two foci above is a singularity in the bottom, God, and a singularity on top, God. The center plane is a third dimension. Below goes down to the lower dimensions, and the upper goes in the upper dimensions. But it makes a heart in the three dimensions, makes a toroidal field. The toroidal field is the earth, and the earth realm is a third dimension. That's why earth is a battlefield with a toroidal field in the shape of a heart below and a shape of a heart above. That's the full toroid and the power and why karma works and why everything on earth returns to us, because we are in the third dimensional center foci of a toroidal field with two spiraling patterns. One is a sun and one is a moon. If you do both of those spinning, the Christ consciousness is a spinning toroidal field of that foci of the heart of the sun. And then the Antichrist is another spinning toroidal field foci of the Antichrist, which is the moon. If you take moon and you take moonlight and measure how warm it is, moonlight is colder than moon shadow, which is the opposite of the sun. Sunlight is hot and sun shadow is cold. Did you know that? The bottom singularity of God and seeing the two focuses of Christ and Antichrist, God is a singularity. What is a singularity? And it's above too. It's above and below. What is above is below. These two singularities of what they're trying to create in the collider in CERN. They're trying to create another singularity here in the third dimension outside of the foci of the sun and the moon in the third dimension here on Earth. If they can create a singularity in the third dimension, they're trying to create a singularity of the above God and below where God resides also, and where the two come together. They can do that. That's transhumanism. That's what they're trying to do. This is what I've discovered. Now tell me anywhere you've ever heard about the heart-shaped two foci and one foci on the bottom and creating a toroidal field that's above and below. Tell me anywhere anybody's ever said that. Anywhere in the public. It has never been mentioned. I'm giving this right now to the internet for the first time ever. This is what's in my book. I can show you math too. I have tons of stuff.
I believe you, Chris. I think it's so complex. It's a lot. You know, like I'm taking a little vacation in your brain right now, and it's a lot.
It's all based on the percentages. It's all based on the first time God had his consciousness. God was 100, 100, 1 and 1, right? He's the only oneness. Everything else has to have duality. So as soon as God looked in the mirror and saw oneness, he had to have duality. What's the only duality you could have at that split time is 15%, 50%, 30%, 69. So 69 is the perfect number for God because it's a oneness. 69, it's just beautiful. It's perfect. The 69 is the golden ratio, the way you do the 6 and the 9. And you think about the 6 is a number of man, and 9 is a number for completion. The number 8 is infinity, right? All these make sense if you start spinning them. And if you think about God being 69, 6, 9, man's number is 6, and 9 is completion. God is the completed man. So what are we? We are a fragment. We are a fractal of God. We take every fractal of all this in third dimension, that's what creates the full oneness of who God is.
Yeah.
That means that inside of everyone is a fractal, is a fragment of God that has the complete vision of what God can be. That's the Christ consciousness point. That if you can obtain pure Christ consciousness in this realm, then you've achieved what God wants us. We're the complete man. That's Homo Illuminus. Look up Homo Illuminus. It's a good one.
I'm running out of room for notes. Chris, here's the thing. I have some friends that are entrepreneurs, and a friend that comes to mind, my good friend Zach, he was married, he had a mortgage, he worked at a hardware store, everything, but then his wife left, he lost his house, he lost everything. And what that did was it freed him up to start a jiu-jitsu school, and now he's a very successful jiu-jitsu coach, and he's doing great. But there is something to losing all of your connections to what is like giving you like stability. Once you lose that, then you are kind of free to do anything, and I wonder if you're talking about me, I'm talking about Joe Rogan, people like that. I think for me too, I am very willing to dive into all this stuff. Like I really don't judge the stuff that you're talking about as like false or weird or crazy. I am down for like, okay, I'm down to look into this, but I still have so many footholds on this world and what happens when I turn on the news, what happens when I just open up a newspaper, what happens when I walk down the street at Target. Like I'm still so immersed in this world, and you seem to have transcended or escaped from this like society trap in such a way that what doesn't seem out there for you is just like you're seeing it like clear. You're downloading all this information. It's making sense to you. But for someone like me who still has like my feet very firmly on the ground of like this world, it's challenging. And I wonder if because of your experience, because you've had these experiences in your life that completely crumbled your world around you, that you are free now to look at the world in a totally different view, where everything that you see is not what it seems. Am I making sense of what I'm trying to...
You're making 1,000% sense, because I really did. As a SEAL, I was doing pretty good. So right after I retired, I had a job. I was making about $200,000 a year. And I had anything I wanted. I was one of those SEALs that was in technology and agency stuff. So
what year was this?
This was in 2011.
Okay.
So right after I retired the military, I went straight from the military and went right into this job working for the Pentagon and all these other agencies, inventing stuff. So it would bring me into a room and it would give me a problem. So I'm a systems engineer by nature. And the administrator, the director of NASA said, I'm one of the very few natural systems engineers that he's ever met. So if you give me a problem, I'm going to figure it out. So I analyze and I look at it and I'm able to put things together. You go, okay, here's a solution. I'm not bragging. We're just saying this is a gift. So we all have gifts. This is my gift. So they would always come to me with problems. They'd say, hey, we have this going on, and what do you think? And I would sit there and I would noodle it for a little while, and I would come up with a solution. And it's happened one time with the Secretary of the Navy. So I was in the CNO's office, and they had this problem they've been working on for a long time. And they gave me the entire problem set. And I said, okay, let me go think on this for a while. So I went down inside the Pentagon to the coffee shop in that area. In the outer courtyard, there's this little coffee shop thing. So I got a cup of coffee and I sat in one of the picnic benches in the middle of the Pentagon. And I just thought, and about 2 hours later, I went down back into the bowels of the Pentagon and I told them the solution. And they've been working on this problem for like 2 or 3 years. And they're going, oh my God, there's a solution. It really works. I said, yeah, it's going to work for sure. And it did work. And we started the mission changed. So, and I can show you 20 or 30 of these solutions, but most of them are still classified because these are deep solutions of really hard problems that nobody can fix. I'm able to kind of figure out. It's a super gift, and I thank God I'm given this gift. And I think the reason I'm able to get these downloads through the Holy Spirit is because I can put together a lot of stuff and try to simplify it. Now, what I've given you is a lot of stuff kind of fast, but I'm trying to give you a lot of nuggets because I only have an hour or two with you. I wanted to give you enough stuff for you to think about. And after you think about it long enough, maybe you'll dig into it and start figuring some of the stuff out for yourself, or we can speak again in the future. And I hope we speak again in the future. So I want to dive in deeper into a few of these. Because some of this stuff is so mind-blowing. I think when I really show you what it boils down to, you'll be like, wow. But what I want you to do is I want you to apply the rule of threes for the rest of your life. And do this with every word. Do this with every action. Is all the power of three. God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. And you can do it with a word right now. And it's all cryptographs too. I can do this with Nostradamus. So right now, I can fix almost all of the trip graphs and a lot of words immediately because I understand the code. I can also do this with a heartbeat that you have right now. Boom, bum, bum, boom, bum, bum.
Yeah.
Your heartbeat beats on a heartbeat of God. One large beat and two small, large, too small, large, too small. When you walk, if you walk with the heartbeat of God, you'll walk the walk of Enoch. Everything is one big and two small. So figure it out. One's going to be glorious. One will be good and one will be bad. So start applying that to your life. If you think about what you're doing right now and you think about, am I doing the great good? Am I doing good or am I doing bad? There'll be a great good God. There'll be a good Jesus and there'll be a bad anti-Jesus or back into that thing. So every action you take, think about it. When I'm doing this with you right now, am I doing great good? Am I doing good or am I doing bad? I think I'm doing great good right now because I'm giving you a lot of really good knowledge that I found true in my life. And I think you can do a lot of really good stuff with this, right? Think about something you've done in the past. Like just today, think about what you ate for breakfast. Were you eating something that was super healthy or kind of healthy or crap? Did you eat a Pop-Tart? Did you eat a piece of toast with some butter on it? Or did you eat some fruit? What did you have for breakfast this morning?
I had sweet potatoes and a bunch of veggies with some eggs.
So you had great good.
Yeah,
you had a great good breakfast.
Yeah,
You could have had a Pop-Tart, which is terrible.
I don't need that.
But think about everything you do in life. Think about doing in systems of threes. So I try never do the okay symbol because that's an evil symbol. So never do an okay symbol is terrible. Okay is actually equivalent to 3 6s. So never do okay, and it's a habit.
Not because it's white power.
It's also 3 6s. It's a terrible symbol. But everything you do, every action you take, every word you use, you can do it to the power of 3. It'll be great good, it'll be good, or it'll be evil. Every action you take will be great good, it'll be good, or it'll be evil. I'm telling you, it works. Before you take any action or speak any word or approach any person in life, if you use a rule of 3s, you will start figuring your life out. You'll start living a great, good life. Okay?
Yeah.
Try it.
Thank
I mean, I'm trying to do everything I do in that way. So, and I can also do it with a 6 and 9. Tesla was wrong. Tesla used the power of 3. He did a lot in 3s. He had that right. But then he tried to do a 6. He tried to do a 9. It wasn't 3, 6, 9. It was 3 and a 69. It was a power of 3. And then it was God. Everything is God. God is all the power. God is everything. God is 69. God is June. God is the great summer. God isn't spring or fall or winter. Spring, it's summer. God is the great light. God is the greatness. God is Cancer. God is 69. God is sitting there in everything. Everything would line up into a fractal in a code of God. So Tesla had it wrong. Do the power of 3 and then always think about God, the great 69, and then break it down from there. The only thing you have left is a 15-15 equality, and you always have free will was left over. God gave free will on the first day in the Garden of Eden. So you always have to have 1% somewhere, right? That's free will. Yeah.
It makes us human.
God gave free will to the angels. Yeah. That's why Lucifer took a third of them down out of heaven. Why did Lucifer get third in the power of 3? Because God kept the great good angels, which is Michael and Gabriel and a whole bunch of the other ones. And he kept all the rest of the angels. But then he gave Satan, you can have them. He didn't let Satan take them. He gave them to him. He's like, all right, that's what you want to do? You can have all those guys. Take them. I don't want them.
Yeah.
Power of 3. I can do this for everything. Your entire life, I can break it down. The power of 3, God, 69, 15.
I believe you.
That's why I did it to water. I did it to Giza. I did it to nut, you have raw nut and Geb.
I'm not on your level, Chris, but I think what I do understand is like cyclical patterns.
How I got here.
Yeah, I see patterns over and over and over again. And I try to just point out those patterns to people just to say like, just recognize that there's a pattern going on and you should be aware of it.
But the pattern is a power of 3 and 69, God. Then the pattern goes further from there. It goes into 15 and 15 to equal it out, to make 100%. And that's consciousness. Everything you do, if you can split it up into percentages or time or anything else, and do 69, 15, 15. I can do the stock market right now and be a billionaire. But I choose not to because money is evil. Money is this realm. I don't care about this realm. I don't care about what's going on in the third dimension. You can watch your news, read your newspaper. That has nothing to do with me. What has to do with me is the power of 3 and God only, And do this one. Multiply every number 1 through 9 by 2. And then write those down. Write down what it equals into, right? And then do another one. Do every number 1 times 2 is 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. And then do all that out. And write all those numbers down. Actually do that. Just do it. Multiply every number by 2 and keep making it go bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay? Do that when you get done. And then take all the numbers at the end of the solution. So 2 times 2 is 2, of course. Times 4 is 4. Times 8 is 8. Then 16, so that's a 6, right? 16 times 2 is 32. That's 2. 32 times 2 is 64. That's 4. 64 times 8 is 128. That's 8. Do you see a pattern start developing? For every solution, take the last digit, and you'll see a pattern. What's that pattern? The only place it changes is when you do 2 times 5. So you have to do it through each number, right? So 2 times 5, you end up with 20. Then 20 times is 40, is 60, is 80. Then take the second to the last number. It's the same pattern. Now do it with 3, because that's one pattern throughout, right? It's 2, 4, it's 2, 4, 6. It's all going to be the pattern. Now do it all by 3, the power of 3, right? It'll give you 3 different patterns. You have the first center pattern, so equals like 1, 2, 7, 8 or something. And then you have the pattern, and you have another pattern. So being at level 5, where it changes, is the center line. Then from center line, you have a pattern to 4 and 3 and 2 and 1. Then above that, so what's above is below. It equals out. And these are dimensional analysis patterns. Then break those numbers down into another number. And this will be another one. But just do it. Do 2 times everything, do 3 times everything. And this is why the duality works above and below. That's where it works. Above and below is all equal to God. That's why the pattern is all the same. But if you do the power of 3, you're talking about the Trinity. And that's when God lets you break it down further. That's when he gives you the 5 cutoff, which is a third dimension. Then he gives you the dimensions above and the dimensions below. And this is all the where Satan has control, and this is where God has control. But all of it still equals God, because it all collapses down into 9, a completion, which is God, which is 69. If you want to do this further, I can do it further. But everything I'm telling you with the power of 3 and duality above and below, and then the numbers I'm telling you, you need 12 friends, 12 of you in a group, the 13th will descend. All this adds up to the same thing. What is 12? 1 plus 2 is 3. Power of 3.
I do want to go into the trans thing. Was it your just like, the fact is that you are open-minded, you are looking for truth, you are open to a whole bunch of things that other people would dismiss. Was it a way to heal your brain injuries? What was that? And then how much of it also, Chris, was the kind of like, lack of a better term, like trans agenda? I've had a whole bunch of trans people in my podcast, like Joey Cole. I've also had like Buck Angel and people like that who are kind of speaking out against you, who are trans. Like, what was that experience? What was it that led you to make that change and then realize that it was false? It was false for you, and it was false for like what you saw as best.
It's false for everybody. It's false for me. It's false for every human on earth. We are made perfect when we're born. And then we get corrupted. We get corrupted by parents, by teachers, by politicians, by everybody. We are corrupted beings. So we're corrupted because other men have egos and other men have all that. I'm talking about human. When I say men, I mean humans. I don't do that gender. I don't do the gender.
I hear you. Human. Yeah.
If I ever say men, I mean humans. So mankind has corrupted mankind. And this is part of Satan's trick. So part of the trick is to make us think that we can perfect God's work. I mean, that's what you're doing. You're perfecting God.
How did you fall into that, though? How did
God,
you fall?
God allowed it. God allowed it because I'm a warrior. I'm a warrior, and I want to fight for what's right. And I was tricked into it by this suicide narrative and everything else. I fell into it because I was corrupted by sexual trauma when I was younger, and I was corrupted by TBI. I was corrupted by PTSD.
That clouded you.
I was corrupted. It's a huge cloud. Yeah, I was corrupt. Yeah. And so with that corruption, I had the doors open to Satan. And Satan entered those doors and said, hey, we can cure you by doing this and this and yours. You know, you can cure yourself because you're so a powerful human. And so my ego, my own narcissistic tendencies, which I admit I used to be a narcissist, allowed me to think that I could fix myself. You know, I'd fix yourself with a gender that's supposedly fluid and a million genders by a binary surgery. How does that even make sense? You can fix suicide by surgery? How does that even make sense? The only illness, the only mental illness, the only illness we have that you can fix yourself with surgery is transgenderism. How does that make sense? You know, it makes zero sense. You can fix almost every illness through God's medicine and through prayer and fasting. You can fix a lot of stuff. I was tricked into it by psychologists. I was tricked into it by an agenda. I was tricked into a false narrative that all these kids are committing suicide. They're not. They're committing suicide because they're anxious. They're committing suicide because they're being bullied by their parents, by their teachers, by other students, by all kinds of society stuff. The suicide because of gender is a false narrative. They're not committing suicide because their gender is wrong. They're committing suicide because they're being bullied like crazy by society. It's a society bullies right now. It's pure cultural Marxism, which is what's going on. And that's what you ought to be teaching right now, is about cultural Marxism. That's where it's at. And it started with that one school in New York City, and it started by all kinds of crap. The Frankfurt School of Thought. It's an evil agenda. And they're doing it to us on purpose because we're splitting us up, divide and conquer. And I'll tell you what, all these kids who have had all these surgeries when they're kids, you thought that kids were committing suicide and people were committing suicide in the past. This is going to be horrible when they start doing it. Chloe Cole is a great spokesperson for this. She speaks onto it.
I adore her.
Greater and way better than I can speak on this. I can speak to you by my own experiences that I got tricked. I got tricked as a 40-something-year-old into a false narrative of hope. Because there's no hope in transgenderism. All it is more surgery and more pills. Because if you get one surgery, you're going to start thinking about your next surgery. You get that surgery, you're thinking about the next. You're thinking about more surgery and more pills and more clothing and more makeup and more this or more that and more macho if you're a trans man. Buck Angel will tell you about that. The only thing he can pursue is being more of a man, talking a deeper voice and being a tougher guy, lifting more weight, doing more testosterone. But when he sleeps at night, he's still a female. He'll tell you too, he's a biological female, living in a male thought patterns. And a male surgery they had is not even close to what a real man is.
Well,
I'll tell you what, I get into any room with Buck Angel, and he looks at me, even when I had a skirt on. He knew who the man was.
Yeah.
And I've met him.
I get along with Buck very well. I've had other people.
He's a good person. He's a good human, but he's a female.
And he admits that. He's very open of like, if I didn't present this way, he believes that, like, and I got to take people for what they say about themselves.
At least he's honest about that.
He's honest about that. And he also says, like, I would be a more unhappy person if I didn't present this way. So I like to present this way, and it makes me a more content person. So
and that's called mental illness, and he's being very honest about it.
He said he has a mental illness.
Yeah. And that's what every transgender person right now has: autogynephilia or gender dysphoria or anxiety, and their parents that are forcing this is all about Munchausen by proxy. Now, I went through mental health counseling, and I quit like 2.5 years into it. I was so close to having a degree in mental health counseling, my graduate degree, but I was being brainwashed with critical race theory and a bunch of lies. And so I was like, you know what? You're lying to me, and I don't want to be lied to anymore, so I quit. I could have finished the degree. I could have been fooling myself and just gone along with it and go, okay, let me get the degree. But what is that piece of paper worth? That piece of paper on my wall for a graduate degree, a master's degree, would have been worth less than a piece of toilet paper I rubbed my shit on. And especially from Alfred University in New York, there were a bunch of liars. And they were lying to me. I wrote a paper. There's a beautiful paper written about critical race theory when I was fighting against it, and I got a 50% grade on it. And I go, seriously, Professor Schmuckety Schmuck, you're going to give me a 50% grade paper on a really well-written paper because you don't believe what I wrote because of your agenda? Alfred University, I shit on you like Diogenes. I'm going to tell the truth. Diogenes would shit on you right now, and that's what I'm doing. Alfred University in New York, upstate New York, you're a big pile of crap, and I'm taking poop all over you because you were lying, and your piece of paper that you could have given me was worth less than toilet paper, and I wiped my butt on it. And I got a bachelor's degree from there, and it's worth less than toilet paper. I'm going to poop all over that too. Because Alfred University, if you're sending your kid to Alfred University, they're being brainwashed with a bunch of indoctrination and lies. They're teaching nothing but lies. And I would never send a kid there. Nothing but brainwashing and indoctrination. Crap all over you. Diogenes was looking for the truth. You would find less than truth at Alfred University. Alfred University. Bunch of liars.
Where do we go from here, Chris? Look, I mean, people might disagree with you on certain things, disagree with you on the transgender things. You've earned your place. You've earned your right to talk about the things that you have. You've done a lifetime of research and experiences in all kinds of ways. Like, if you can't talk about the negatives of transitioning, then who can? You did this. You committed your life to this. if someone can't talk about physics and the effects of brains and things in war and the cabal of the Pentagon doing shady stuff, when you worked at the Pentagon, then who can? So this was long, Chris. This was a lot.
I think that God allowed a lot of things to happen to me because I'm a lawyer and I volunteered for this. So I went there, before I came down here to this third dimensional existence here as a spiritual being. I'm an infinite spiritual being living here for a very short time on Earth. I volunteered to come here. I volunteered for this mission. And so everything that's happened to me right now is really tough. Tell you what,
you're literally as tough as human beings get on this planet.
And I did it on purpose. So, and I'm here right now speaking out of experience. I was in the bottom of the Pentagon. I saw the waste. I'm telling you right now, I could cut the Pentagon bed budget by easily a third, I think 2/3. There's so much waste. I saw the waste. It's ridiculous. So the Pentagon budget is billions and billions. I could cut it down to probably, into the millions, easily, And the military right now, I'd pull them all back from all overseas. I would go back to the Monroe Doctrine, right now, immediately.
More isolation.
I'd do so much stuff I would do. The agencies, I would dismantle the CIA immediately. I would dismantle the FBI immediately. I would have elected sheriffs in every state. They're in charge. If your sheriff says it's good to go, then that's what it's good to go. You don't need the FBI anymore. They have run amok so deep that we don't want them. We don't need them. CIA, we don't want them. We don't need them. There's a bunch of things I would change. And if you're a police officer and you weren't elected and selected by an elected police officer, then I wouldn't trust you for as far as I could throw you. There's all the state police and everybody else. Sheriffs and sheriffs only, I trust them because sheriffs are elected by the people. Well, there's tons of stuff I could talk about right now. But I got here, I'm going to talk about being transgender because God allowed that because I volunteered for that. Yeah. So now I can speak to it. All those surgeries they're doing right now on kids is butchering the kids. Now, if you're an adult and you get a transgender surgery, that's up to you. If you want to live on that side of the vibrational atmospheres and you want to go to lower vibration, then go for it. That's a Kundalini and the lower root chakra. If you want to live there, you can go for it. But I'm going to live in the crown chakra. And if you're part of the Kundalini, you're part of the root chakra, you can't go to the crown chakra. It's impossible. You're going to keep getting routed right back down to it. You can go up to the heart, but you're going to get rerouted right back down to the root. The heart is the most powerful. The root holds the most energy, but you're going to get rerouted every time. You'll never make it up to throat or crown. I can guarantee you. I can show you the science behind that too. It's all vibrational. So there's a lot of stuff, but God allowed this because I volunteered for it. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to talk about all this stuff. What you're doing right now is the evil agenda. They're hurting kids. Like I said, one of my warrior friends is Craig Sawyer, and he's with Veterans for Child Rescue. They're rescuing kids, directly in the field, rescuing kids. And I want to rescue kids right now by saying the transgender cult is a cult. It's a religion of transgenderism. The overarching religion is transhumanism. They want people to think that people can make themselves better. You can't. The perfect being, the perfect human is God made right when you're born. You're corrupted after that. And if you think surgery and you think all this stuff is making you a better human, you're kidding yourself. It's not an agenda. It's a cult. This is not godly. It's a cult. It's a satanic cult. And I'm going to try to help any kid out there that you're not broken. You're beautiful the way that you were made. The way you were born is beautiful because you were born that way. You're born in God's image. Don't corrupt God's image. It's the best you could ever do. Surgery ruined me. It messed my face up. It messed this up. It made my life shorter. I'm not going to be on this earth as long as I could have because of the surgeries, because of the pills, because of hormones. Doctors are experimenting on you right now. They tell you they know what they're doing. They're lying. This is all experimentation. Show me the long-term data on puberty blockers.
Yeah.
You know where they get the long-term data from?
Prisons.
Prisons,
Oh.
It was all castration,
chemical castration
pills and medicine. That's the long-term data. It's from prisoners getting castrated, pedophiles getting castrated. That's what you're giving your kids right now. If you're a parent giving that to your kids, shame on you. If you're a parent giving that kids, you have Munchausen by proxy. That's your mental illness right now. Or you're a narcissist and you love that narcissistic cult. Transgenderism is the cult, and it's based on narcissistic tendencies and the Frankfurt School. Look it up. The Kinsey, the pedophile in charge, Kinsey. That's where transgenderism comes from. Yeah. Well, stop it, you parents. Stop it. You're hurting your kids. Satanic. And that should be the last thing we say is stop hurting your kids. Yes. And we need more teachers like you, Will, asking the hard questions and being open-minded and living a good life, Will. You're living a good life.
I'm trying, Chris. Thank you. This was a lot. This was a lot. You have so much going on in your head. And it comes out and you're like, well, let me show you this. And then you show it. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Do you relate to some? I love what you said about pull on one of those threads. The people who listen to this, they're just like, oh my gosh. Cause you're like, write that down. Look up this up. Hold on. Pick one, pull on that thread and just pull on it, pull on it, pull on it, pull on it. This stuff isn't hidden too deep. I mean, you can look at this stuff. A lot of it's on Wikipedia. It's not that deep, a lot of this stuff. Start pulling at that thread. Stay curious. I'm trying, man. I'm trying to be the link between people like yourself. Now, you're the only person like you. You are an individual, Chris. You really are.
You broke the mold because this mold hurts, man.
That was quite a mold. I think most people couldn't have gone through what you have.
Can I leave you with the last thing, what you should do?
Please, yeah. But I just want to say real quick, and then I wanted to give you the last word. I want to be the bridge between people like you with your ideas and your kind of perspective and your life experiences and the people who are still, for lack of a better term, in the matrix, the people who are still very mainstream and listening to whatever they're told. I want to be that link between you guys. And that was my hope was going into this conversation. And I hope that comes through because I was giving you a lot of room to run. And then I hope that the who are listening and stick with this go okay, I kind of see what the point here is there's more to the world than I thought, something like that, and start just pulling on one of those threads. Don't turn away from your career. Don't dismiss the things that you were saying today, Chris, as crazy or out there or ignorant, because you can just pull a little bit and things start to unravel, and then you'll start to realize that there's a lot more out there than you think. So I just wanted to say that and then give you the last word, sir.
So if you want to really dive in and you want to get spiritual and you want to get in the crown chakra and see out of your third eye, fast for 6 days. And during the fasting for 6 days, there's no electronics, no nothing, no food, just drinking water, and get out in the sunlight a lot, be outside, and you're going to see what I'm talking about. You're going to see a lot of it. And then you'll start receiving downloads. So, and the reason it's 6 days, it's part of the code. So it took 6 days to create Earth, right? So then the seventh day, you're going to be off it, then you rest and you recoup. And when the seventh day, though, make sure you eat really well. You're going to eat fruits and vegetables and real clean eating on the seventh day. Otherwise, you're going to get it'll really mess you up. So if you want to learn and you want to get up there into the higher levels of vibration, the chakras and the power, and really have the Holy Spirit descend on you, get your Bible out and have a marker highlighter and get ready to start highlighting the Bible and marking it up, because you're going to be all over that thing. So get a new Bible that you don't mind marking up. So, and you ought to see some of the Bibles I have behind me. I have Bibles from the 1800s behind me right now. So I didn't mark those up, but I bought a new one, and that's my marker Bible whenever I fast. But fast and pray and read the Bible and get outside in the sunlight. When you're in the sunlight, you want to sun gaze. So get there at sunrise, and you can sun gaze for almost the first hour of sunlight. Not quite the first hour, but I'd say about 30 minutes, 40 minutes. But looking right at the sun. So right at sunrise, watch it rise and watch it get up there. Do at least 15 minutes. Really good for you. And same thing as sunset. At sunset, 15 minutes before sunset, watch it set. And when you're doing that, you're receiving so much power from the sun. That's the power you need. It'll increase your melatonin, and it'll actually make you get a suntan. You don't even need to lay out there. You don't need to do any sun tanning. If you watch the sun for 15 minutes in the morning at sunrise and watch the sunset for 15 minutes as it sets, you'll get tan without even being in the sun. Watch, you'll get tan even where your sun don't shine. It's true. So this is true. It's been proven. That's the only thing you need, because it fires off your melatonin with your sun entering your eyes, and your brain, it tells your whole body to produce melanin, and it makes you tan. It's crazy. It works. But it works mostly in the spring and in the fall than it does mostly the spring, because your body's getting ready for you to be in the summer and a hot sun. It's automatic. So that's a few more nuggets to give you. But I tell you what, I owe my entire life, and I owe everything I've done and all the knowledge and everything I said to you to God, to Jesus and the Holy Spirit. God is number one. Jesus is my commander, and the Holy Spirit helps me. It's like the water of life. Jesus gave me that water. Jesus gave me the Holy Spirit for me to drink of him and have his nourishment every day. But I know God is number one. God is the king. Jesus is my commander. The Holy Spirit is the water and bread of life that I drink every day and eat every day. That is it. That's the formula. 6 days of fasting, and then 7th day rest, you'll start downloading. Read the Bible and pray and understand who God is. God is everything. God is good and evil. God is every proton and neutron and everything in between. God is all of it. That's why when I said the big square God, when he split it in half, God saw God, and he split it in half again. Then he saw Christ and Antichrist, all God. And when you come to realize that, then you realize all of it. That's why God can't kill Satan. That's why he just throws him in the pit for 1,000 years. Satan was in the pit for 1,000 years already. He didn't kill him. Why didn't he kill him? Because Satan is part of God. Satan's a fractal of God. Satan's part of the template. And you need that friction. That's called the, it's the dialectic. You have to have it. And why did God let Satan out for a short time, for a short season? Satan is out right now for a short season. This is a short season. So that means it's less than 1,000 years and it's less than 500. How many years since 1854? So this right now, we're living through a short time of the short season of Satan, and it's getting ready to end. And then God still can't kill Satan, but he throws him in the pit of eternal damnation, the fiery furnace, forever. So God gave Satan one more chance, and he failed. And this is all getting ready to end. I'm a warrior. I'm here for the end. That's why I'm here right now. He sent the toughest of us to come back here on earth and volunteer to come back here on this realm and then fight for the last times. I can feel it. And I know this is true because I was one of them. I was already up there. I came down here to do this. And I love all of you. I love every transgender person out there. I love every human out there, no matter how bad you are, because that's my way. My way is to love all of you and to give you as much love as I can so that you see it and you feel it. And you're going to know that this is true because I love every one of you. I love all of you. And I want you to know that we're in the end times. And if you don't start looking at the Bible, if you don't start repenting and come back to God, it's going to hurt bad. And I don't want you to hurt. I want you to be there with us. I want you to be there in heaven, in the light. I want you to feel the light of God and what he could give you because it's so intense and it's so big. The light of God, it's all here for you. All you have to do is believe it. God is number one and the God of all gods, the God creator. And Jesus came down here. There's a lot of templates before that and you can believe it. But Jesus is the one, the truth and the light. He is the only one. Start reading the Bible and look at it and repent. Repent right now because the time is short. I'm telling you right now, I love every one of you. And I want you to know for truth. This is the truth. And this is the way.
It's a beautiful way to end it. Chris Beck, thank you. Thank you. We'll put links and things like that, valid for us, on the channels. But thank you for spending your time with us.
If you enjoy these kinds of complex conversations and want to try to apply them in your own life, check out my free download, Debate to Dialogue, a guide on having productive conversations on religion and politics. It's available at www.cylinderradio.com/debate to dialogue.